Hello everyone, today I'm talking with Breanna Hargrave, who's one of our Australian Muscle sponsored athletes, and Bree, I'll call you Bree. Bree's a national level elite cyclist. You've been on board with us for quite a while now.
Yes, I have. I think I was trying to work that out earlier today. I think since about 2012, which was just before leading into the 2014 Commonwealth Games.
Yep.
So yeah.
How did that sponsorship come about? I can't remember. Can you remember how that came about?
I think through another one of your supported athletes. He was giving me a little bit of advice on supplements.
Yep.
And then I came in and met you, and it went from there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Excellent. So before we go on, I'll ask if you could just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself, about your cycling, how you got into cycling, and the level of cycling that you're at now.
Yep.
So I understand you started off pretty late in your career.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so I was doing athletics up until the age of 28, and just wasn't quite getting to where I wanted to with that. So
how high did you get in athletics?
So I was competing at the nationals, and my main event was the heptathlon. So at that time I was ranked probably about 10th in Australia for that.
So the heptathlon is?
So that's 7 events.
7 events, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the high jump, long jump, shot put, javelin, 200, 800 and hurdles.
Yeah.
Still remember it quite well.
So you got to top 10 level in Australia?
Yep, but you kind of needed to be like at least top 2 to be considered for the Olympics.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wasn't pushing up to those positions, and I felt like I'd really given it a fair crack, and thought like if I didn't look at something else now, it might be too late. So I went and did some testing. They actually had some with the Australian Institute of Sport at the time, and it turned out that I had the right build and was able to put out a fair bit of power on the watt bike. So they put me into a talent transfer program.
All right.
And and I ended up joining SASI and starting track cycling first. And that was actually as a sprinter, so sort of doing what Anna Mears did. And yeah, I had an absolutely awesome time doing that. Went to the Com Games on the tandem and won a couple of bronze medals. And I was the Australian champion in the 500 metres on the track a couple of years ago, and then transferred over to endurance track cycling. So that's just a little bit longer competitions, and I managed to be 3 times Australian champion in the team's pursuit in that. So
right.
Now I've moved across a little bit further to endurance on the road.
So I imagine the transition from track to road is completely different.
Yes, it is. I was lucky I didn't go straight from track sprinter to road. I just went through the endurance track to the road, but it's still very different. Yeah. I mean, on the road we might do about 500 k's a week, whereas when I was on the track it would have been maybe, I don't know, maximum 80 k's or something like that. So yes, it is very different, but I'm absolutely loving it. Yeah. So I'm lucky. At the moment I'm riding for 2 teams. One is a international team, a Japanese team. They're called High Ambition, and I also ride for the Subaru Giant team, which is the National Road Series team that I've joined.
Yeah. So how do you get into these teams? Do they select you and approach you?
Yes.
Or do you nominate? You know, that I'd like to.
Usually. So with the Japanese team, they were looking for a rider, and one of the girls that I rode with at the Tour Down Under recommended me. She was from Singapore. She's a Singapore national champ, and they knew they needed a sprinter, so she got the owner in contact with me. So that was the Japanese team, and then the National Road Series team, they were also looking for a sprinter, and sort of a little bit of word of mouth, and you have to have a bit of a resume behind you that people know about, and they contacted me.
So would that be classed as, you'd be classed as a professional cyclist?
I think so. Not quite professional. We're unfortunately not on a wage, but so with the Japanese team, depending on the level of sponsorship at the time, they'll pay for our flights and accommodation, and not always the full price, but that's what they're trying to achieve. And the Subaru Giant team they pay for the accommodation, and then we pay for the flights and that sort of thing. So it's a bit of a mix. The idea with the high ambition team is they're going to become UCI Pro Continental, is what they're called. So when that happens, that is another step up into the professional ranks.
So you ride on a circuit?
So with the road stuff, so there's a couple of different.
Yeah, like you said, a world tour, or
So the UCI or the Japanese team, they ride UCI races. So there's a couple of different levels. Like the Tour Down Under is one of those races on that circuit. So yeah, we're sort of aiming at the middle to third level with that team, and most of those races are actually in Asia, so which I absolutely love because it's really warm and humid there, so I tend to perform a bit better in the heat. And then your top tour events are stuff like the Tour de France and that sort of thing. So
tell me a little bit about cycling. I'm always intrigued by the cycling because in a race there's a team.
Yes, that's right.
Now in a team there's usually a star. The way I see it as a layman, there's a star, and then there's this group of riders that are around him. How does it work? That their job is to keep a pace with him, and then towards the end of the race they'll take off or whatever. I always find it intriguing how it works.
Yeah, it is very interesting, and to be honest, until I was doing it, even doing the road more seriously, I didn't quite understand the level of how everyone has their job and that sort of thing. But basically in cycling on the road, because of the different terrain, it suits different riders and different athletes in certain ways. So usually each team would have a sprinter who's the person who would finish the job off. They would usually have a few riders that are known as domestiques, so their job is to support that sprinter, to ride next to them, protect them in the bunch. If that sprinter needs a drink or food, they go back to the team car, get that, bring it up. So in that process, they're wasting a lot of energy. That's also saving the sprinter's energy. And then you might have a few riders that their job is to attack off the front and hopefully get into a break. So if that break sticks, then it becomes perhaps their job to win. That way a team has a few different options of winning, either a breakaway with one of their riders that are perhaps more of an all-rounder, or if it came down to a sprint finish, the sprinter might win. It also depends on the type of terrain, like I said. So if there's a very, very hilly race, then someone like me is not necessarily going to make it up the final hills, so then it becomes the hill climbers race.
All right, one more question, because I'm showing my naivety here. But I've watched sometimes the Tour Down Under and the Tour de France, and there'll be a breakaway group takes off. And the commentator, Jeff Liggett usually.
Phil Liggett,
that's right. He'll turn around and say, "Oh no, they've gone off too early. The pack's going to ride them down." And I'm thinking, well, why does the pack ride them down? Why can't they just keep breaking away?
So
if they've broken away, and sometimes they're so far ahead that you can't even see them, but then they'll have the distance between the breakaway and the pack is slowly catching them. And I'm thinking, well, why does that happen? Why don't they just keep breaking away?
So it's all very calculated, which I think often you don't realise until you're doing it either. And often the breakaway, they're doing it to create other things to happen. So they would like it to stick, but often there's so many strong riders in the pack that they can bring it back, and sometimes they'll let them stay out there to try and get those riders to waste as much energy as they can. And they've got the team captains in the car, or the managers, working out exactly what power the riders in the bunch need to put out to catch them in the next however many Ks is left, which is often why you'll see a race catch just before the finish line, because it's all perfectly worked out by wattage. It's so clever. But if there's a break, for example, that has one rider from every team represented, often that will stick because the teams don't want to chase down their rider. But if there's a break that has every rider except maybe Sky or one of the big teams represented, then that team that's not represented will go to the front and chase them down. So it's very so many tactics involved. But yeah, as you watch it a bit more and obviously riding it, you learn it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. It was you'd always see that breakaway gets caught before the finish line and overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's super exciting like that. But I think today, because of power meters and the science that we now have, it's become a very different form of racing. Back in the day, the people in the pack would have absolutely no idea how many Ks it was that the breakaway were ahead. So
you mentioned that they're measuring the power output.
Yes, yeah.
How do the bikes have got Bluetooth onto computers and things like that?
Yeah, so we all have like power meters on our bikes, and the numbers on that are going into a laptop somewhere, which is sitting right in front of your team manager in the car, and they're able to see
so he'll be able to work it out, and he'll relay then to you that you need to bring that power up to this level to catch them or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, it's
amazing.
It really is. Yeah.
There you go. I know I'm an expert in cycling now. I'll be able to bring that with my wife now when we watch cycling.
Excellent.
Explain it. So obviously this virus has now impacted on everything. Like world sport has stopped.
Yes.
Much to my
crazy,
disdain. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
Like all I watch on TV is sport. So there's nothing, you know. And I even signed up for KO just before it happened, so I could watch every sport in the world. And then now there's no sport. So obviously you are all gone back to your home bases and everything. How do you manage your training now?
So mainly for cycling.
Is the team still keeping track of you and giving you numbers to work on and things and all that sort of stuff?
So Subaru Giant, we've got a few sort of group messages, and I would say every day we're contacting each other, which has been really good. We've been doing also a Zoom thing with the girls team every fortnight, so we have a chat with everyone in the team on Zoom, and that's been good to maintain our relationships there. The Japanese team, I've been chatting with the owner occasionally as well. So the main thing, I guess, with the cycling is the lack of racing. So we're very lucky, especially in Adelaide, we can still ride outside. So a lot of our training is still continuing, but not necessarily the bunch rides. So the bunch rides is also another thing that we're missing. But as far as the racing goes, the Cycling Australia is now organised for the National Road Series to be held on Zwift. Or the start of the series at least. So Zwift is an online cycling racing. So basically you put your bike onto a trainer which measures your power, and you put in your information about your weight, and that's how it works out who's doing well, and you're watching your screen and you're racing everyone that's in the race, and you have a little avatar and
Oh, right. Sort of like the V8 supercars are doing their stuff on simulators.
Yes. So obviously it changes a lot of how cycling's raced, because there's not so much focus, I guess, on the skills like cornering and descending and that sort of thing. It all comes down to power to weight. It's very clever though. You can actually draft. You can sit behind a rider, and that means that you don't have to put out as much power. But yeah, so I've been trying to get up to speed on Zwift. We start racing next Saturday. So
awesome. You mentioned earlier that you went up to Commonwealth Games level. How many Commonwealth Games did you compete in?
I've just been in the one, so that was in Scotland in 2014. And yeah, it was an awesome experience. I rode on the tandem there in the kilo and the match sprint, and came away with a couple of bronze medals.
Awesome.
What
about Olympics?
Olympics, it's always been one of my biggest aspirations. Haven't quite got there yet. The track team have already been selected for Tokyo, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. Obviously now it's been moved a year later, and I don't know whether that changes the selection.
No, I did. There was an interview with the Australian Olympic chief, and he said that the teams that have been finalised are the teams that are going. And the only way anybody else can get into any of those existing teams is if someone pulls out through injury or something. And then I think it's he said it's the next person who was in line
Yes.
to would
Yes.
take their
Yeah,
place. So you still got aspirations for the Olympics?
Yeah, definitely do.
So Tokyo is now next year, so
Yeah.
the following Olympics will be 3 years from
Yeah.
that. So they're 4 years from now still. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I think Paris is the next one. But yeah, I've always had aspirations for that and still do. It's hard being a little bit older. Usually you don't get looked at as...
How old are you?
37.
37.
So,
it's amazing.
But
still at that level, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I'm getting any less fit, or I'm still improving. And I think part of that comes down to the rest of the stuff that you do off the bike. For example, like your nutrition and recovery techniques, and also weights training, and I do Pilates 3 times a week, that sort of thing.
So yeah, that was my next question. So obviously you incorporate weights and everything else into what other training do you incorporate? Weights, obviously?
Yeah, so I've been doing, especially with the corona situation, I've started a bit more of a strength block again. So I usually do weights about 2 times a week now that I'm a road cyclist. When I was on the track, it was 3.
Yeah.
So I do 2 times a week, and Pilates 2 or 3 times a week as well. And usually that's body weight stuff, plyometrics, and occasionally things like leg press and deadlift and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's always hard finding the right balance. I'm still doing that at the moment, trying to work out how much weights I can do without affecting my road training. But that's why I've had to be really on top of nutrition as well, and recovery and that sort of thing, to make sure that I recover as quick as I can, to then go and do a lot of stuff on the road. Because on the road we might train 3-4 hours a day on the road. So yeah, if you're tired and sore, it makes it hard.
That's right. And in terms of nutrition, are you in charge of your own nutrition, or does the team have a nutritionist? Do they sort of keep track of you? Body composition pinch test, do they do that, keep that sort of thing?
Yeah, so when I was racing on the track in Sassy, we had the scans, the body scans, and that helped keep on top of our body composition. Also, advice from you guys has always been really helpful. I've seen a couple of dietitians as well, and just learnt things along the way. I'm pretty much in charge of it now myself. I've learnt what I need to, and obviously always learning more. But I think under your guidance, I've been pretty good at that throughout my career. I think that's why I can still race at this level.
When you initially told me about it, I was amazed at how nutrition didn't seem to be that much of a priority, that they left you on your own means.
Yeah, it's something that I think you have to sort of source out yourself a little bit, which I agree is something that should be of higher importance.
And before we wrap it up, supplementation. Yeah, so and you've obviously you found supplementation of a benefit?
Definitely. When I used to do athletics, I remember I used to train and then go home and not have any sort of recovery until I ate dinner at night, you know, and when I change even just a protein shake after a session, and I feel like it's made a huge difference to me. So always obviously have a brand that's got the informed choice tick of approval, and I'll usually have like a protein shake mixed with carbs, and within 20-30 minutes after training, and with some creatine if I'm doing a strength block, and then also use beta alanine as well. So that's probably the main supplements that I would use.
Excellent.
And I think it makes a massive difference. I really think that it's something that all athletes should look into, and do it properly. Get the right advice, and if you're not quite sure, speak to people like yourself, and you have great advice, and can, if I need to look into it further, know who to talk to.
Awesome. Is there drug testing at your level?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been drug tested numerous times, and there is good advice in the sport on what's legal and what's not, definitely. And we all complete ASADA training every year to learn any changes that's occurred. So you always have to be on top of it, and obviously it all comes down to yourself as an athlete, what you take, and you need to know that what you're taking is fine to take, which is why the informed choice tick of approval is really good. So
which is what FinTech has.
I think what was it? On there somewhere. No, it's a little green thing that I look for.
That's right.
So that's why I've been using Genetech, which I've been really happy with.
Excellent. All right, thanks Bree.
Thank
that
you.
gave me a good insight, and I feel really good because I've learned so much about cycling, and I can now look like a real expert in front of my wife.
Excellent. And thanks for all the support over the years. I just can't thank you enough. I've been incredibly lucky, and I think it's made a big difference to my career.
No worries, you're welcome. Before we go, just you're on social media?
Yes, social media. So
where can people, if someone wants to contact you, where can they catch hold of you?
So Instagram, Bree Hargrave 33, or my Facebook is Breanna Ryan. Send me any messages or anything like that on a follow. I'd be happy to help out with any questions anyone has.
Thanks Bree, it was a great chat.
Thank you.